And this is where the general asks some questions, some poignant questions. What kind of training had this battalion done? What manner of mental, attitudinal, professional preparation had it achieved before being inducted into the battlefield in Sri Lanka? What attention did its previous brigade and divisional commanders give to training and to tuning it before dispatching it to Sri Lanka? Surely it was forced to keep doing its station duties, providing working parties for golf courses, clubs, sports events, and other peacetime activities senseless. So, what he's saying there is that while this force was back in India, instead of training, what they were doing was, helping with golf events and taking care of the local sporting events that they were doing, helping with the clubs, cleaning up. They weren't training for war, which is what they should have been doing.
And that's the domination squad.
That's the domination squad.
Yeah,
this is the guys. They were not ready. Where the CO stood up, resisted peacetime demands made by selfish, peace-oriented brigade and divisional commanders and trained their men, they and their units did well. They saved on casualties and sought the enemy. So he's saying that the commanding officers back in India that stood up and said, "Look, we're not gonna manage the golf game. We're not gonna go clean up the club over there. We're gonna train for war." Those guys did well. Where newly inducted units failed and senselessly suffered, the blame must squarely and entirely fall on the unprofessional, indifferent brigade and divisional commanders from whose formations such units came as reliefs in Sri Lanka. It was a breach of faith all along, so very painfully callous and unprofessional, even as late as the beginning of 1989. So you had the IPKF, which is the Indian Peacekeeping Force, who has really fought in all kinds of different wars all over the world. But they had been sent into Sri Lanka to try and quell the violence between the Sri Lankan government and the LTT. And first of all, they thought they were going to be on a peacekeeping mission. And they ended up not being. I mean, they ended up being on a peacekeeping mission, but they ended up in serious combat with the Tamil Tigers. So it's these questions that he asks. What kind of training did they have? What attention was paid? These are things that, if you're in a leadership position, you should be asking yourself, what position are you putting your people into, and how well have you trained them for it? And if you have not trained them for it, then you need to train them for it. And also assessing where you are going to end up. And this is something that when I was running training in the SEAL teams, I was always training guys for the worst case scenario. In fact, we would set up operations where we'd tell them, okay, you're just going to go and meet with the local tribal leader, and we'd have actors that were going to play the local tribal leader, and we just want you to go in there and drink tea with them and try and gather some information from them. And so they'd go, okay, and if they didn't prepare properly, they would get destroyed because, of course, we'd lure them in and say, oh, yes, the tribal leader is ready to meet with you. Oh, great. Lure him into the room, and then all of a sudden you take that guy hostage, you kill him, and then you start. So we'd cause total mayhem. But the point was you always had to prepare for the worst case scenario. And that's obviously not something that happened here.